Hello, welcome once again to It's a Frankly Harry podcast. I'm your host, Frank Weber. So glad you could join me in the forest once again today. Looks like you are tuning in each and every week, and I thank you so much for that. I've got a pretty fun show for you today, and we're going to do some more stuff with commercials. But before that, I need to go on a yearly rant, and I talked about this a little bit last year. By the way, I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving and enjoyed family and friends and being grateful and eating a lot of food and watching football and all those things. I did a lot of that myself. But as I record this today, on Tuesday, December 2nd, this day is designated as what is now known as Giving Tuesday. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, of course. I want to get into the fun stuff, but I don't get it. This is a day that people are supposed to give stuff to each other, and the timing of it just doesn't make a lot of sense. We just had Thanksgiving, which is the ultimate day to give thanks and be with loved ones and be grateful and everything. We just had that a few days ago. And then we're now, of course, fairly early in the Christmas season. That's only about 3 weeks away, I think, which is crazy how fast time goes by. But Christmas, obviously, you can give a lot of things, and people buy gifts to give to other people, as well as giving their love and thanks and attention and so forth. So obviously, it can be a very giving holiday. And then even beyond that, after Christmas and before New Year's, you're going to see a lot of commercials on TV wanting you to give to charities and get those tax deductions and what have you. So that is yet another opportunity for giving before the end of the year. And for some reason, we have this crazy day today called Giving Tuesday, which, as I understand it, was some kind of progressive backlash against the commercialism of the last few days, like Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and a lot of people are still having deals and sales really this entire week, even up till this next Sunday. So I don't get it. We don't need this day, and the origin behind it is apparently pretty speculative. So I have to remind people about this every single year. And in honor of that, we're going to look at a few commercials today. Fun commercials, amusing commercials. As you will recall, a couple of months ago, I did a review. I think this was about early October. I don't remember the exact episode number. But I did a review of a stupid commercial for Home Serve, which is a home warranty company, and I saw a lot of problems with it and analyzed it. But we have things that I think are a little bit more amusing and fun today, and I'm always wondering, speaking of commercialism, what is it that gets us to buy things? And so this is an appropriate topic, not just for Giving Tuesday, but for the Christmas season as you go out and shop and later give away various material goods to loved ones. So I'm going to review 3 commercials that I've seen lately on cable, and primarily on Fox News. I need you to know that I'm a one-man show on this podcast. I'm kind of technologically behind the times, haven't gotten around to even doing video and what have you, and so I can't really play these commercials or bring audio to you, and in fact, even YouTube won't even record with my recording system here, even the audio, and I don't know, YouTube kind of pisses me off as well, because you can't have more than one window open in YouTube at a time for some crazy reason. But I'm going to try to post addresses to these commercials in the show notes in case you want to look at them. And I was not able to find one of them, and without further ado, why don't we go ahead and get into that? So the one that I couldn't find on YouTube, it's kind of weird because I can see some ads in other places on Google and whatnot, but Dr. Drew is doing an ad for a home emergency kit. I think he calls it an urgent care kit. I think it even includes some antibiotics, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so in this commercial, it starts off with this blonde girl. It looks a lot like a girl I went to high school with, actually. And so she gives a brief introduction, and then she goes, "Can you tell us more, doctor?" And then Dr. Drew goes into his deal about the kit and what it includes and everything. And he's doing this in a very kind of stale, impassioned, or unimpassioned, what am I trying to say here? Unimpassioned way, which is kind of unusual for him. Usually he has a little bit of humor and pizzazz, but it's very stale. And then finally, the commercial ends with the young blonde lady saying, "Thank you, doctor." And I always thought it's a really weird commercial because they're not actually having an interview and there's not really a conversation here. And I think that's what, it's like Dr. Drew recorded his part and then they added the young lady's part to it. And it reminds me a lot of, and I don't know if this is a new technique or if people have actually been doing this for years, but it kind of annoys me. There's a situation here in Texas, like a lot of you know, like whether you believe the Dallas Cowboys are America's team or not, right? They are basically the team through most of Texas and the surrounding states, without a doubt. Okay, that's the only team that we all have. And every week, maybe several times a week, I don't really watch the Nexstar channels very much, the local affiliates that are owned by Nexstar. But during the sports portion of the news broadcast, there's a guy who's been with the Cowboys for a long time, Mickey Spagnola, who will come on and give a little report on injuries or how well the team practiced that week. And the person at the station will ask Mickey questions, and then Mickey will respond. However, you can tell that Mickey's response is very canned because he records his message ahead of time, and I think what questions to ask are given to the station itself so that the interviewer doesn't ask anything too deep or probing, because I kind of think Jerry Jones, the Dallas Cowboys owner, doesn't want people to ask really tough questions and such. So what you wind up having is not an interview or not a conversation, but it's actually a very canned, phony interview, if that makes sense, because they're totally not talking live to each other. And I don't know if that's a new technique, but it's supposed to look like they're having a conversation, but they're really not having a conversation. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on in this Dr. Drew and blonde chick commercial. And then, of course, it's also kind of amusing because Drew is very canned and kind of stale and kind of tense looking, stiff in this commercial, which is unusual for his personality. And then, of course, he says, "Thank you, doctor." So if you haven't seen that commercial, I haven't been able to find it on YouTube, but I think it's still airing on Fox News. Although I think I have seen it on a lot less lately. But obviously I'm not putting down the product. I think it's by the Wellness Company, I believe is what it's called. An emergency drug kit. I mean, certainly something that could be useful in your home. But for those reasons, I found this to be a very slightly amusing and interesting commercial because they're not actually having a conversation here. But that seems to be the case in a lot of things in society now. We don't really communicate or if we do, it's kind of fake and stale and what have you. So the next commercial that I'm going to get into has been around for a year or two officially, although it is a new take on a classic commercial. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was like in junior high and a teenager and going through teenage things and making fun of a lot of crazy things and jokes and whatnot, although a lot of other people made fun of this commercial as well. But there was I think it was a fairly new product at the time, of course, called Life Alert, and it involved an older lady who fell and said, "I've fallen and I can't get up." Actually, I didn't even say that right. Let me try that again. "I've fallen and I can't get up." Hopefully that didn't jar you out of your seats too much. I know I'm not necessarily the best impressionist, but this lady looked a lot like the Where's the Beef lady from the Wendy's commercials a few years earlier. And so we made fun of this at school, and a lot of comedians and late show hosts also kind of made fun of it. Lots of different people. And the more recent version of it, I just found on YouTube, there's actually an extended version of this, but you only get the abbreviated version, of course, on TV. But there's a husband and a wife, and the wife, I think she's an attractive woman. She may be younger than me, I would say, though it's hard for me to judge age. I think like half the women in the world are younger than me now, maybe even more than that. I don't know. But she is apparently trying to reach her mother, and she tried 5 times and only gets an answering machine or whatever. And the husband like, "Oh, I'm sure she's okay." It's kind of like what the husband usually says, like, "Oh, I'm sure she's okay," and everything. And then she gets a call from Life Alert and says, "Yes, your mother has had a fall, but we've sent help on the way. She's fine." And she's like, "Oh, thank goodness." And the husband, of course, comes over and comforts her, gives her like this little hug type thing. The best actor in the whole commercial is probably the little blonde girl, who's probably like, I don't know, how old do you think she is, 9 or 10 at the most? And she is able to give a very empathetic empathetic look on her face, I guess I should say. And in the extended version, she says, "Is Grandma going to be okay?" And, of course, Mom goes, "Yeah, she's going to be fine, sweetie." Anyway, so the only other thing that I would tell you is I don't know if the mom in the commercial, if it kind of bugs me because I don't know if she plumps her lips, which is something that I'm not real wild about in women. It's not very natural looking, and, it's like... it's a lot like having a breast augmentation. Like it's not, especially larger ones. I mean, it's not in proportion to the body, and it just doesn't look quite right because we have a innate sense of proportion, no matter whether you like larger breasts or not. But I think the same thing is true with these plumped Botox lips that a lot of people are walking around with now. I mean, some of whom are just gorgeous, gorgeous women. I thought the mom here was very attractive as well, but I don't know. Leaves a lot of questions, but I'm glad that Life Alert is still around. It's an important service as well, just like that emergency drug kit. But those are some observations from that commercial. All right, so lastly, but certainly not least, and the real reason for why I decided to discuss commercials today, well, let me give you a little background first, shall we? It's always important. But when I was a kid, could be late elementary school, junior high, high school, or whatever, there was a notion amongst myself and some of my male peers that one of the big things that attracted women was smelling good and wearing the right cologne. And a lot of times we wound up putting way too much on, and like at the house, for instance, and then Mom would smell it all the way downstairs or wherever. And if she could smell it down there, then everybody else could smell it, and then you kind of wind up being annoyed. And of course, there's been studies out since then, and maybe even before then, that as long as you don't smell like a pig or something like that, your natural pheromones are actually what can attract a lady to you more than any kind of artificial cologne. But anyway, that being said, there's a new cologne commercial out there called Gravite, and I don't know if a lot of people have seen this commercial yet or not, but basically there is several very attractive women in it. Most of them are sleeveless. One or two of them are sporting cleavage, and of course they're all fairly young as well. And basically they kind of cater to kind of the embattled gentleman that exists these days. And they ask these women, what makes a gentleman? And one of them says, oh, he pays for dinner always. And then another one says, oh, he holds the door open for me. That's just good manners. And then another said, a gentleman saves himself for marriage. And so basically, the commercial then, by the way, looking at all these ladies, they're probably all models of some kind, which, and some of the personnel, by the way, at Fox News, which is where I've seen this commercial, some of them have been models. A lot of them could be models, and there's also a lot of I kind of figured that they were the ones responsible for the sleeveless trend and a lot of the women going sleeveless on the news anchor desk in recent years, because it used to not be that way for those of us who are older than like 20. But anyway, this voice comes on and says, these days it can be challenging to be a gentleman, but smelling good should be easy. And so these women go ahead and test this cologne. And then they get these very amusing comments, like later on, like they're talking to the bottle and saying, like, "What are you doing later?" And then I think one of the ladies, maybe the same one, said at the end of the commercial, "Oh, can I keep him?" As if that was the actual guy. So I don't know. It was a little strange in that regard, kind of corny in that, but. When you first see this commercial, and apparently I think there have been some other iterations of this commercial before, if I remember correctly, but when you first see this commercial, it kind of looks a little bit like a Blue Chew commercial that have been going on the last couple of years. Like, generally speaking, if you have women that look that good, and a lot of them are actually kind of close up on the camera, as well. I mean, they're not at a distance like a female news anchor or something like that. But when you have women that look that good, the general consensus is you don't really need Blue Chew, to help you out. You may need the Gravite to help you out, but that's another story. But I found it to be very amusing. I think you would find it to be very amusing as well. It's obviously a very pleasant commercial to watch, and good-looking women with good demeanors. I mean, I almost want to buy some Gravite after that. I haven't worn a lot of cologne lately. I don't know if that's because I'm married or what the deal is there. All these women, by the way, are apparently in their homes, sitting on the sofa or a chair or whatever. But I'll post the link. It may be one of the best commercials that is out there right now, especially in the plethora of crazy Christmas commercials from Walmart and other places getting you to buy stuff that are already driving me insane and have been for close to a month now. But this is kind of a refreshing break from all that. So I am pleased to share it with you and share my analysis. And I almost feel like I should be saying something else, but I think that's probably about it for today. So anyway, don't get caught up too much in the Giving Tuesday. Actually, this isn't going to air until Wednesday, so thank goodness it'll be over by then. But all this stuff is meant to give you some analysis, but some thought as to, not just giving, but also just the psychology of getting us to buy stuff. And hopefully it was entertaining to you and for you, and maybe even a little bit of thought-provoking. Maybe a little bit of thought-provoking material today. So anyway, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out the show for this week. Like I said, it seemed like there's a fairly consistent, not quite every week, but fairly consistent uptick in the hits on this show. My hope is that, of course, they're all coming from real people and not bots, but to help get those numbers up and keep this show on and keep me moving forward and making improvements on this show, I would really appreciate you're sharing this show with everybody you come across, whether that's it could be anybody, family, friends, somebody at the convenience store. Hell, just stop and say hi to somebody, make a little quick small talk, whether they respond or not. And you don't even really have to talk about my show necessarily, but I really wish people would kind of talk to each other a little bit more and to slow down a little bit and, say things like a lovely day. Don't you think we're having a beautiful day today or something like that? But anyway, and if you have a chance, go ahead while you're talking this little small talk with them. Please, by all means, share the show because sharing is caring. Hit that subscribe button. And I love to hear your comments and direct messages. No bots, please, of course. I think I've only had one person since I've been on Substack for the last 2 years or so now. I think I've only had one person actually write me back, and it was on a written article that I did on the LPGA and its apparent marketing or lack thereof. I really wish I got a little bit more commentary. It's kind of like saying, "Hey, how are you? How's your day going?" That's kind of the way that I look at it. So any feedback is greatly appreciated. So with that, I'm going to let you go for now. Hope you have a great, wonderful day and the rest of your week. And I look forward to seeing you back here in the forest next week, where, of course, we see the forest rather than the trees, as it were. I think that's how the saying goes, right? Anyway, with that said, this is your host, Frank Weber, from It's a Frankly Harry podcast, signing off. See you next time. Love you. Bye.